Hey everyone, welcome to another Divhunt tutorial. Today we're going to talk about the GSAP animations plugin. In this video we're going to make a bunch of animations, so stay tuned until the end. First, you need to go to the project settings and under the browse plugins you want to install the GSAP animations plugin. Once this plugin is installed, you can go back to the builder and start working on your animations. Firstly, let's say how the GSAP animations plugin works. Well, it takes all the properties that we already have here into the designer and turns them into the animation. So without further ado, let's go and build one simple animation here, which will slide this text here all the way to the right. And how can we achieve this? Well, firstly, we will need to take this tag here and set its position to be absolute. And now we have the access to all of these properties here. But before we start editing anything here, let's go and select this parent here and set its position to be relative. Why? Well, that's because we want this heading here, which is absolute, to be sticked directly to this tag here. So it's going to be its parent. Now, what we want to do here? Well, basically, we want this text to be pushed from the left all the way to the right. So we can select this tag here, go to the positioning, and now we have the access for these options. Let's go and set this here to be in percent, and by the default it's if I set it to the 0%, and let's select this wrapper here, you can see that this tag here is sticked to the left edge of this parent here, or in other words it's 0% away from the left edge. Now if I again select this heading here and let's change the input here, let's push it, let's say 100%, or let's go and just slide it here, you will see how this tag is getting moved on from the left side based on this value here, or in other words it's now pushed for the 31% from the left edge of its parent. Now what will happen if I input here 100%? That means I want it to be pushed all the way to the right. Well, you can see that it's pushed to the right, but it is also pushed outside of its parent. And how can we fix this? Well, for this one, we would need to scroll down a bit, and here into the effects field, I'll need to open it, and I'll need the transform option here. Now, here into the move field, I have the horizontal and vertical fields. Now I need to take this heading, and for its full width, I need to push it all the way to the left. And how can I achieve this? Well, here into this transform option, into the horizontal field, I can type in minus 100%, which is the full width of this tag. And now you can see that it's again back into this container and it is perfectly aligned to the right. And this is how you can do it with the Divhunt builder. But how can you animate this? Well, for that, let's just go and reset these values that we've set here. And let's go and reset this one as well. And now let's see how can you do this with the GSAP plugin. So basically, you need to select this tag, go to its settings, go to its transform option, set it to GSAP animation. And when I open this plugin, at first glance, it might seem overwhelming, but it's quite simple plugin with just a bunch of options. So let's break it down here. First field is target field. With this field, you can specify which tag you want to target with this animation. And when I open it, you can see three different options. First option is the self option. With this option, you're targeting the tag on which this transform option is set, or in my case, it's going to be this heading 2 here. With the tag option, you can target any other specific tag on your web page. And with the class option, you can target any specific class. For this example, let's set it on the self option. For the event field, with this field you can specify what will be the trigger for your animation, or when you want your animation to start. When I open it, you have two different options. On-page load will trigger the animation when the page has finished loading, and scroll into view will trigger the animation once you've scrolled into a certain tag. For this example, let's leave it on the default value or on the on-page load. Follow scroll option, we don't need it here, so we're going to skip it. With the duration field, you can specify how long your animation will last. By the default, it's set to 1000 milliseconds or 1 second, which is enough for my example, so I'll just leave it like this. Delay field, we again don't need it here, so I'm going to skip it for now. With the easing, you can set the easing style for your animation. You can choose from various options from this list. I'm going to set it to this quad option. And now we are finished with this option section. We can go to the animation section here. And now you can see all these properties here. These are all basic CSS properties that you already have into the designer. So you can see this opacity here, you can see the positioning option, color option, transform option, filter option, and many more. I won't go into detail about these fields because they're simple CSS fields. The only field that needs explaining here is this animate field, which has this switch for the value. With this field, you can specify when you want to edit the initial state or the starting state for your animation, and when you want to edit the finished state or the end state of your animation. Firstly, let's go and let's make sure that it's set to from, because we want to set the initial state for the animation. And as we said before, as we demonstrated into the designer, let's firstly set here the left value to be 0%, because at the beginning of the animation we want this text here to be sticked to the left edge of its parent. So now I can go and switch here to the end state, and now I can input here 100%, because I want this text at the end of animation to be pushed all the way to the right. And now, as we had the problem at the beginning and set that transform property, I will now go to the live site, hit the refresh, so you can see what will happen. You can see how this text slides all the way to the right and goes outside of the boundaries. In the designer, we fixed this issue with the transform option, and here that transform option is this X position. This is basically the transform move option, and the X position is horizontal movement. You have this Y position here, and that is for the vertical movement. In this example, we need this X position here. We're going to input -100% because we want this tag to be pulled to the left. That is the reason we are putting this minus here. If we remove the minus, then the whole tag will be pushed to the right, which we don't need in this case. Now, if I go back, hit the refresh button, you can see how this text perfectly slides from the left all the way to the right and stays into the container. Now, what is left here to do is to animate this heading here. So firstly, I need to go to the designer, make sure its position is set to absolute and its wrapper or the parent div is set to relative, just the same as we did before. And now what we want to do here is we want to do everything the same as before, but now we want this tag to be pushed from the right to the left. And now the logic stays the same. We need to manipulate this time the right position. So now I can go directly to the settings of this tag here, set the transform to GSAP animation, make this stuff here be the same as this one. Only thing I need to change here is this easing, set it to quad, and now I can go here. And now, as I said before, the logic stays the same. I need to manipulate the right field now. So the initial state is going to be 0% here, and the end state is going to be 100%. So this will push this tag all the way to the left, or in other words, it will push this tag away from the right edge for 100%. Now, let's again go here, hit the refresh, and I'll scroll down a bit so you can see clearly. If I hit refresh again, you can see the same issue appears. We have this text going all the way to the left, but again, outside of the boundaries. So let's again go back to the builder. Again, the X position field. This time we're going to type in 100% without the minus, because in this example we want text to be pushed to the right, so we don't need the minus here. And now if I hit the refresh, you can see how everything works smoothly and everything stays inside the parent boundaries. So we have this animation perfectly set here. After we finished these animations here, we can now move on and take a look at this section here. So what can be the idea for the animations here? Well, we can basically hide this card on the left and this image on the right, and as we scroll into their viewport, they can appear on the screen in a form of a drop down from top to bottom. So how can we do this? Well, firstly, let's select this whole card here and let's take a look at this height field. We can make this animation through manipulating the height of this card. So basically, the initial state of this card can be 0 pixels, and that will make our card completely invisible. But as you can see, we have this problem here that this content here is sticking outside of my card. And how can I fix this? Well, basically, while my card is still selected, I can just set the overflow to hidden, and every single content that is sticking outside of this card will be cut off and invisible to us. Now, what this will be the initial state for our animation, and what will be the end state? Well, we can basically just type in auto here, and this property will automatically calculate the height for this card and resize it to it. Now, let's go and reset these stylings here, go to its settings and append the GSAP animation to this card. Now, when I open this plugin, I can start building this animation. The target is going to be self, because I want this card to be targeted here. So I can now go and set the event to scroll into view, since I want this animation to be triggered on scroll. Now the duration is fine, and here I can just change the easing style. Let's set it to expo here, and now I can go to the animation section and start animating this card. So basically, in the initial state, as we said before, we want the height of this card to be 0 pixels. And into the end state, we want the value to be auto, since we want the height to be automatically calculated. So let's go here, hit the refresh. As you can see, our first animation works perfectly. And as I scroll into this section, you can see that nothing happens. But let's see what will happen if I hit the refresh while I'm here. You can see that this card appears, as we said before, in a form of a drop-down from top to bottom, and the animation works smoothly. But why this animation isn't working while I scroll into this section? Well, the answer for this is that this animation is working like that, but this card is triggered way before we can see these sections. So basically this card triggers here, so we cannot see the whole animation, and it seems like ain't working. So let's go back and let's take a look at this start when group of fields here. With these two, with the combination of these two fields, you can determine at which point of scrolling your animation will begin. And let's break down these two fields. First field is the element position, and this field, as its name says, it's based upon your element or the tag on which this animation is, on which this plugin is set. In my case, it's this whole card here, and let's open this drop down to see which options we have so we can explain them. We have this top, center, bottom, and custom, and let's take center for example. This basically means the center of my tag here, or in my case it's this card here. And if I just go and set it to bottom, this will mean the bottom of this card. Same works for this top option here. This will be the top of this card. Now, as for the viewport position, this is basically the position of your whole screen, and you have the same options here. And if I set the center, this means the center of your screen, top means the top of your screen, and bottom means the bottom of your screen. So let's go and set center here, and just to make your life easier, let's enable these markers here. So now I can go back, hit the refresh, and right at the start you can notice these two markers here: scroller end, which you need to ignore for now, we don't need it here, and scroller start, which we'll talk about now. As I start scrolling, you can notice these start and end markers, and isn't needed here, so you can just ignore it. And with the start marker, we can determine when our animation will start. Now, as I start scrolling, you will notice that as soon as these two markers align, start and scroller start, the animation will trigger. And let's scroll up, hit the refresh so you can see it again. You can see that as soon as they touch, the animation triggers. So this indicates the trigger for my animation. And now, as you can see, if I scroll, these markers will follow me, and this scroller start marker is based upon this field, viewport position. So as I said before, this marker is placed exactly at the center of my screen, and it will follow me as I scroll. And for these two markers, the start marker is placed based on this field, and as I said before, this field is based on the tag itself on which is plugin is set. In my case it's top, so you can see that this marker is placed exactly at the top of this card. So these markers ain't doing anything exactly to this animation. They're just visual representers of when your animation will trigger. So if you're struggling with your animation, you don't know why it's lagging, for example, or why it ain't working like in my case before, you can enable the markers and see what's going on. And with this said, I can now go back and let's turn off these markers so we don't need them here. And now we can jump to this animation here. Now let's select this wrapper here. Firstly, let's go to the designer and set the overflow hidden here, and the logic for the animation here will be the same. So target is going to be self again, event is going to be scroll into view. This time we'll leave anything like this here, and the easing we're going to set it to expo, just as for this card here. And here we want the trigger to be the same as for this card, since we want these two, for this card and this image, to start at exactly same point. So I'm going to set here to be center, and this will be it here. Now logic for the animation stays the same. Initial state height 0 pixels, end state height auto. And now if I go back, hit the refresh, markers are hidden since we turned them off. And as I scroll into this section, you will see that these two cards trigger exactly at the same spot, and they have exactly the same animation. And we can do one more thing about this animation here, and that is to set the small delay on this image. So firstly, this card gets loaded, and after that, this image on the right. So I can go back, and now I can pay attention to this delay field here. So let's go and type in something like 500 milliseconds here. And if I go back, click the refresh here, you can see that this card here triggers and it appears, and after a short delay or 500 milliseconds as we set it, this card appears on the right. So you can see it again. And if you for example want this card here to be triggered after this animation here is completely finished, you can do that by typing into the delay field exactly the duration as you have on this card here, or in my case it's this default value 1000 milliseconds. So you can see if I hit refresh, this card here finishes completely, and then this animation here begins as this animation here ends. So that will be everything for this section here. Now after we finished these two animations, we can even further progress into our project, and now we can talk about this section here. And one idea for the animation for this section would be, while I scroll into this section here, I want the background color whole body tag to be changed to black and the text color to be changed to white. So let's see into the designer how that would look like. So let's select our body tag here, go to the designer panel here, and let's scroll down a bit, and here I can type in the text color to be white and the background to be black. And this is what I want to be the end product of my animation here. So you can see that my colors are now inverted. The background is black and the color is white. So let's go hit the restart here so this doesn't interrupt our animation, so we can start building our animation. So I want to select this section since it's going to be the trigger point for this whole animation. And here I can go to the settings and append the GSAP animation to it. I can now open it and start editing it. Now the target this time is, as we said, is going to be this body tag here. So I'm going to set it here to tag, and I will get this select tag field. If I open it, you can see the list of every single tag that is currently on my page here. So as we said before, we needed the body tag, so I can just start typing here body and it will automatically be filtered. So I can just select it. Now for the event, I want it to be scroll into view. And let's enable markers so everything will be easier for us. And this time, let's enable the follow scroll option. Now, for the triggering point, we can do the same as we did before. We can set our element position to be top and viewport position to be center. So our animation will begin as soon as the top of this section is aligned with the center of our screen. So let's now go here and adjust our animation. Now, as we said before, we want the initial state for this animation to be like this, like it's currently is. The background color for the body is going to be white and text color is going to be black. Since these properties are already set to the body tag, we don't need to set them into the initial state. That's because this plugin will pull out those properties and will count them as the initial state for this animation. So because of that, we can now progress to the to state or to the end state, and we can here into the text color input color white and into the background color input color black. Now I can go back to this page here, hit the refresh, our markers are here. So as I start scrolling, we came across these two sections, and here is the start point for this animation. So let's see what will happen. As soon as these two markers align, my body tag will start changing its background color and its text color as well. And now at this time we can talk about this end and scroller end fields. Basically, you will see that as soon as these two fields align, that will be the end for my animation. So that is what these two markers do. So now if I scroll even further here, you can see that the whole body background and text color is changed. And now if I scroll up again, you will see that everything comes back to normal. And you can notice one more thing. Now everything works as I scroll. So if I scroll here, you will see that everything changes slowly. And if I stop scrolling, these changes will also stop. And this type of animation is the product of this option here, follow scroll option. So basically, this whole animation will follow your scroll. If you're scrolling further into your section, the animation will progress. If you're scrolling outside of your section, your animation will progress backwards. And if you stop, the progress will completely stop. Now, as you can see, we finished this amazing animation really quickly. So now what I want here to happen is, let's say if I start scrolling here, I want again everything to turn back to normal. I want my body background to be white and text color of the body to be again black. So now what I can do, I can go back, and this time I can select this section that is right under this section here. So I can again go and set the GSAP animation transform to it, open the plugin, and I can now target the body tag again, since that is the tag on which we are targeting with previous animation. Event is again going to be scrolling to view. Here we need follow scroll again, we don't need markers here. And this time let's make this animation here. Let's again go with this combination here, so we can see what will happen. And this time again, we don't need to set the initial state, since the plugin will pull out the value that body currently has for the background color and for the text color, and that will be the initial state for this animation. So we don't need to input anything here. Let's go directly to the end state and go with the text color of black and the background color of white. So let's go here, let's scroll up a bit, hit the refresh, and you can see that this animation triggers here, ends here as these two align, and as I scroll into this section here, my body tag will again get new properties, but this animation triggers a bit too late. So let's go back here. Firstly, I'll select this section here, go to its plugin settings and turn off the markers for this animation. Now I can go back here and turn on the markers for this animation here. So let's hit the refresh here, and you will see that this animation starts here, but let's say we want it to start maybe somewhere here. So basically what we want to do is, when the top of this section aligns with something like 80% of our viewport, our animation will trigger. So let's go back and let's see how can we make that. Now everything we need to change here is the viewport position, so let's go and this time select this custom option. So this time I'll input the 80% here, and as I go back, Let's hit refresh, and now you can see that scroller start is placed 80% from top to bottom, and exactly as we wanted it, it's placed somewhere around here. So as you scroll in, you will see as these two align that this animation will trigger and it will end while this section is fully into view, and we have made it work perfectly here. So we can now even further progress with our animations. After this is finished, let's progress even further. And here we came across this section here. And what we can do here? Well, we can animate this heading here to scale from 0 to 1, or basically at the beginning this heading here will be completely invisible, and at the end of animation it's going to be fully visible. So how can we do this? So firstly, let's see how this works through the designer. Let's go here and select the effects here and set it to transform. And here we can set it to scale. If I go here and set the value to be 0, you will see that this heading here is completely invisible. Now this is going to be the initial state for my animation, and the end state is going to be 1 here, and as you can see, this heading here is again fully visible. Now let's go here and reset this really quickly. And now let's go to the settings, append the GSAP animation transform here, and start working on our animation. Target is going to be self, the event is going to be scrolling to view, we're going to enable follow scroll option, and this time we're going to enable this pin option. Now let's scroll down and into the animation section. As we said before, into the initial state, we want the scale option for our tag to be the 0, and here is the scale field, so I can type in 0 here, and I can now switch to the end state, and here into the scale I can type 1, since the 1 is the default value for the scale option. Now let's go to the live site, hit the refresh, and don't bother with these markers since they're enabled for our previous animations. They don't have anything with the current animation. So as you start scrolling, you will see that when I come to this section, this massive empty space will be created and our heading will be sticked to the bottom of our screen. So how can we change this? Let's go here and fix this really quickly. Here into the viewport position, I can go and set center. So if I go back, let's scroll up a bit, hit the refresh, and now as I scroll, you will see that this space here is now way smaller. And now as I start scrolling here, you will notice that our text scales from 0, or being completely invisible, to being fully visible and stays in its place. And now you can see one pretty interesting thing here. You can see that this text stays sticked at center of my screen while I scroll, and after the animation is finished and this text is fully scaled, it stays in its place. And that is the magic of this pin option. So basically it pins the wishing tag to the part of the screen which you determine by this viewport position field. As you can see, it's on center, so my text is pinned to the center of my screen. It basically pins this tag here until its animation is finished, and after the animation is finished, it will stay in its original place. So now after this is finished, let's go and take a look at these images here. So let's do something with these images. Well, basically, I would like to make all these images be invisible as I scroll into this section, and as I progress into the section, I want these images to be shown all at the same time. And now, if I want to do this with these images, I would need to go to every single image and set the transform to it and add the animation. But we can do one little trick here. So firstly, you need to go here to the designer panel and make sure every single image contains same class. In my case, it's this ABS-image. So as you can see, my images here contain this class. So what will be the idea for this animation? Well, basically, I want to take this image here. Let's select the class so you can see for every single image at once. I want to set its opacity. So let's go and here is the opacity. Let's go here and set the opacity to 0. And as you can see, my images will be completely invisible. So this is going to be my initial state for this animation. And if I set it to 100, you will notice that they are all here. This is going to be the end state for this animation. And now let's go and build that. So first, I'm going to go and reset these stylings here so they don't bother me. And this time, let's select this wrapper that holds these images here. So now let's go to the settings and set the transform to GSAP animation. Now the target is going to be class, and here I can type in the name of my class. In my case, it's abs-image, and that's it. Now the event is again going to be scrolling to view, and this time let's again, well, this time let's not enable this option here. So let's move on. The duration is fine. Let's again set something for the easing. This time let's go with this sign here. And now we can manipulate the starting point for the animation. So let's make it something like while the top of this wrapper reaches the, let's go with the custom, and let's input here, let's say 25%. So basically, while we are 25% from the top into this wrapper, this animation will trigger. So we'll see if that is enough later on. And here into the animation, as we said before, for the initial state, we can set the opacity for our images to be 0 and end state opacity to be 100%. So now, if I go to the live site, hit the refresh here, let's scroll up a bit, hit refresh again, and now here's our heading here. He's following us, finish the animation, stays in place, and now as you scroll in, these images appear, and they appear a bit too late. So let's go back, and here, let's type some small value like, let's set the viewport position to be top here. I think that will be good. So let's scroll up a bit. Now if I start scrolling, no, this is even worse. So let's go here and let's go with the center this time. So let's scroll again, and now, yes, now it's way better. So basically, when our wrapper is aligned with top of our wrapper is aligned with the center of our screen, as it is set here, our animation triggers. And to demonstrate you that even clearly, let's go to the previous animation here and turn off the old markers, and let's again select this wrapper here, turn on the new markers, and this time let's hit the refresh, and now we have our brand new markers. So you can see that this animation will start, let's hit refresh again, this animation will start here. So this looks pretty fine for me, and let's make some additional settings to this animation. For example, let's make these images slightly move from up to bottom as we scroll into this section. So let's add some additional properties. As we did for the first animation with the X positioning to move our tag to the left, let's this time use the Y positioning to move our elements up and down. So this time for the initial state, I want to push these images to the top, let's say for 70 pixels. So I'm going to select the initial state here and the Y positioning to minus 70 pixels. Why minus? Because I want to pull them to the top. If I input the 70 without the minus, then all my images will be pushed to the bottom, and I don't want that. So let's go here into the end state, and this time input the 0 here, so my images can come to their original place. Now let's go to the live site again and scroll up a bit, hit the refresh button. Now as you scroll, you will notice that my images, let's hit refresh here, they have the opacity, and plus they have this moving effect, and the combination of these two looks pretty amazing for me. And now this isn't the end for this animation. Let's again go back, and this time let's enable this reverse option here. Now if I go back, let's again scroll out here. Now you will see that when I scroll in here, my images will appear. And what will happen if I scroll outside again? You will see that as soon as these two markers start and scroller start align, and I scroll outside, you will notice that my images again disappear. And if I scroll back again into this section, images will again appear. And take a look what will happen if end and scroller end align here. You will notice that when they align, my images will again disappear. And if I go back into this section, images will again appear. This is happening because of this reverse option. And what can you do with the disappearing of your images? For example, you scrolled into your section and you want to take a look at this image, but it disappears too early. Well, you can do this, you can fix this by replacing this end and scroller end. You can, for example, you want your animation to end, let's say, somewhere here. For example, when the center of your tag reaches the top of your screen. So how can you do this? You can go back, and now you have this end when section. With this section you can control the end and scroller end markers. The logic works exactly the same as here, and these fields here works exactly the same as these fields here. So basically, as we said before, we want when center of our tag or this whole wrapper aligns with the top of our screen, we want at that moment our images to disappear. So let's go here again, scroll outside, and now you can see that this end marker is replaced here. So as I start scrolling here, let's refresh again. As I start scrolling, you will see that my images appear. I scroll, and my section ain't high enough for this to happen. So let's go and add one more div here really quickly. Let's set some height of, let's go with 100 VH here, so we can have some extra space so you can see what will happen. And now you will see as I scroll, and my end and scroller end aligns, these images will disappear. And if I scroll back in as they align, my images will again appear. And if I go outside like this, images will again disappear. And this is how you can animate multiple elements at the same time without having to have multiple transform options. You can use the class option. And with this, we came to the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed it and learned something new. Until the next time, happy building!